Thanks for staying with us on the program. Now, in a recent statement by the Lagos State Commissioner of Environment, Tokunbo Wahab, the recent demolitions in the Lekki and Ikota axes have sparked a heated debate on the responsibilities of the state government and the approval process of building construction. Now, according to Wahab, the demolished buildings had no approvals from the state government, raising questions about the oversight and regulation of construction projects in the area. Now, Wahab emphasized the importance of building approvals and the prevention of construction in drainage areas, stating that these responsibilities fall under the jurisdiction of the state physical planning ministry. Now, this also raises critical questions about the coordination and the communication between the different government agencies when it comes to ensuring that building projects adhere strictly to the necessary regulations and the guidelines. The reasons behind the recent demolitions, as explained by Wahab, shed light on the larger issue of urban planning and environmental sustainability. The petitions from 12 villages regarding consistent flooding highlights the impact as well of unchecked construction on the local ecosystem and the community. Well, that said, I will now be joined by our guest who will help us understand the situation better. I'm joined in the studio by Rotimi Akodu, the Special Advisor to the Executive Governor of Lagos State on Environment. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Rotimi Akodu.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, talking about the demolitions in the Lekki and Ikota areas of Lagos State, what were the main factors that led to, the buildings being demolished?
Well, basically, excessive flooding. The whole area was flooded, and it's not just once, twice, severally. And residents in that area just couldn't cope. It was not used to be like that years back, and they confirmed it to us. But of recent, they discovered that once it rains, however little, the entire area is flooded, and you find flood water, storm waters in their parlors, their gadgets floating in the parlors and things like that. And they just couldn't stomach it again. So they had to approach us and for help. And good enough, they have their own facts too, and they're able to come with some pictures and evidences of people encroaching, planting their properties right on the right of way of the canal that is ordinarily meant to convey those storm waters out of that entire area. So we had to come in. They've done their bit, and as responsible and responsive government, well, I feel we should, it is our own time to take it up from there and do the needful. Ensure that we completely abate, flood waters out of that whole area.
Of course, that's necessary. Also, I would like to ask, what role, when it comes to approval of these buildings, what role does the state government's physical planning ministry play in approving buildings and preventing the construction of buildings in these drainage areas?
Of course, when it comes to getting approvals for building, it resides within the purview of that ministry, physical planning. You have the LASPA that generates permits, and you have the LABSCA that goes there to check for integrity of what has been put in place. If it's good enough to stand, and if it's not good enough, they do the needful by bringing it down or advising for renovations and things like that. So they have some other agencies within that Ministry of Physical Planning too, basically to ensure that we have livable and safe living, habitable homes or houses that we can all call a place to sleep and be confident without fear of facing collapse.
All right. It's interesting to see that the petitions from these 12 villages regarding the flooding contributed to the demolition. That means that the committee paid listening ear to the the people who wrote this petition. But I would like to ask, was there any bottleneck in the process of getting their petitions across and then, having to convince, just like you said, of the flooding and for the demolition to take place? Was it very cumbersome? Was it a very tedious process?
There's nothing like a bottleneck or cumbersome process. If you feel you have issues of flooding in your area and you know that the flooding is man-made, these are due to activities of residents of that area. Why not? You can always approach us. No bottleneck. We have our desk officers. We have relevant departments that listen to complaints and take those complaints and we process it. And in the shortest length of time, we check what is wrong and find the most friendly approach or the most human-faced, approach to see that we get solution. Our primary interest is not demolition. That's just when we have no choice and it's the only way to go. Our primary interest is never to demolish. It's just to ensure that we get water out of such areas and get it flowing into the lagoon or the creeks. That's what we stand to represent. It's not necessarily or really to demolish or break people's properties, and we are not really enjoying doing that. And as a matter of fact, for us, we are not demolishing people's properties. We are only trying to separate encumbrances or nuisances out of our canal path. Those encumbrances on the path or the right of way of the canal, we try to separate it, to see that the waters get their flow. That's what we're doing.
All right. We also do understand that a notice was given out since 2020, and some building owners still, refused or ignored these notices. Aside their buildings being demolished, are there any other consequences or punishments, for these people who ignore notices?
Thank you. Yeah, there should be, and now, we're just coming up with this now. I can say that the whole system had been sleeping, whilst all of this, just went on unchecked and or not properly checked, or checked not properly sanctioned. But this time around, we have just opened it up, and that is becoming a subject of interest. That look, the guys, those that are responsible for these issues, those that are found culpable, what do you do with them? They just break people's houses and move? At this phase that we're in now, the rains are kind of getting slower now. But we started at the time when the rains were heavy, and every day you have to deal with flood water, and people are being exposed to the dangers of storm water taking them and their properties away. So our concentration then was, let us make sure we get these waters out of these areas first. Now that we are coming down, we can now begin to look at the consequences that people that are responsible for these things should face. Now, other relevant agencies of government we can now co-opt them. Those that are supposed to do certain investigations, those are supposed to do, findings, to know how or to track the real offenders, because we are not getting to, all we are hearing is victim, victim, victim. Who are those that actually cause all of these, infractions? We need to know them, be them in private or within the government ambit. We just have to, get to the root of the whole matter and use it as a reason or a point for final correction. So those that are still anticipating to do same in the near future can know that they can always be traced, that they are not hidden. As a matter of fact, it's like we're going to have something like a system CCTV that you are being watched. this is the level we are graduating to. But for now, what we're doing is to see that at least the first aid, let us get the waters out. And in cause of getting the waters out, you find us trying to open up those channels, for the water or for the canal to have its right of way, so that it can easily flow down to the water bodies, you know.
All right.
So we'll get there.
Okay, hopefully so. Now let's also talk about the controversy that surrounds the building demolition in the Lekki and Ikota axis. According to Tokunbo Wahab, he said that the demolitions in those two axes were not actually approved. What's that about?
Take it again. That demolition in those areas were not what?
There was no approval. There was no proper approval for the buildings in Lekki and Ikota.
Honorable Commissioner will be right, because all along we've not seen anybody coming up with a document to say this is my approval. You understand? We'll go there. We separate. You know, we separate these encumbrances, these hindrances. We take them off the path of the water. But nobody has been able to come and tell us that, okay, this is the papers I got and that puts me here, or that permits me to have my property on this very, you know, coordinates that fall or coincided with the coordinate of our canal. So, of the part of way of that canal. So it's as good as saying there are no permits, because what we don't see, you understand? So, and if people can come up with their documents to show us, then that can now begin to give us a clue into what went wrong. How come same government that, as I marked this place for as canal, also now gave you, also superimposed you on that same alignment for a building? Then we can now begin to trace where things went wrong. But as far as we're concerned, we've not seen documents, so it's as good as saying there are no approvals.
All right. I believe that there are usually inspections when it comes to buildings being erected in different aspects of the country and of the state. How do we ensure that these inspections are carried out more regularly to prevent having to demolish the buildings when we find out that they were not approved in the first place? How do we inspect when the buildings are being erected?
Well, I can assure you that the state bureaucracy, the civil service, is that effective. Go and check many of those properties, in fact, if not all of them, that are facing this music today. At some point in the line of development, they have been served. They've been called not to do it. They've been told that what you want to do is not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to build on this path. They would have gotten, most of them will be hiding the documents, but good enough, when they argue, we take them to our offices, name your properties, the copy of the initial service were always shown to them. It could be years back, it could be 3 years ago, it could be 5 years ago, it could be as recent as, you know, a week ago, but copies of earlier, you know, signals or warning that where you're treading you are treading to a path of destruction with this project. We have always had that. Even people come, you know, when we invite them to the office, you understand, they tend to be arguing in the face of the camera when they see journalists. Okay, fine. Once they come to our office, we sit them down in, you know, in the conference room. We play the drum for them. We play the, you know, the film, because most of these things are recorded. We play it to them. Copies of initial services, we show them. And what do you get at the end of the day? Pleading. How can you help us? You know? But it's too late. It's too late to cry when the head is off. So I would just advise our people, stop being heady, stop thinking you can do it your way. Government has outlined processes, you know, for everything. Do well to look for those paths to follow, so that at the end of the day, you gain it. initially sounding or looking stressful, you have to go to visit this office, you have to visit that office. Pay that, just go through it, because it's going to serve you, do you well, it's going to do you good at the end of the day. People don't want to say they are going to office of surveyor generals to do their investigation. They don't want to say they are going to lands to do their findings. They don't want to go to, they don't want to go to the necessary quarters, the necessary offices. They don't want to knock on the door. They just want to sit down. They've got their money and they want to own a property. Then they look for the shortest cut. Our advice that they desist from such attitude or habits. It's not going to help in the long run. If you feel you are lucky, you are fortunate today that you escape, someone is going to come tomorrow that will search towards your direction, not particularly aiming for you, but trying to correct one ill or an anomaly at some point or the other, and you find yourself culpable in it. So rather than now running, looking for people's sentiments, whipping up sentiment and looking for people to beg, why don't you just go ahead and do the right thing? Seek information. Information is power.
Right. All right. Finally, I'd like to ask, looking at the demolition that has happened, right, aside this demolition, are there any alternative means to tackle the issue of flooding? Because it seems like with the heavy rains and all that, and of course the issue of climate change, this is going to be a conversation we'll be having for a long time, the issue of flooding. So is there any other alternative means to curb, the effect of flooding?
Well, thank you. There is a saying that water will always find its level. You cannot, there's a limit to which you cage water. It will find its level. And even a quiet water, a still water, has its own potential energy within. If the volume gets to a certain critical level, it's going to force its way out, no matter how calm it is. So the only way is to ensure that we don't hinder. We all come together and ensure that the path, these waters are not hindered for no reason. Just let's ensure. You see, nature has a way of settling itself. Before this, most of this path, this right of way of this canal, they developed themselves. By itself, it developed. Before we came to join them there, they pre-existed before our settling there. So when you now go there, you now feel, let me just encroach it, let me take a part of it, at the end of the day, you are going to discover that it's an ill wind, blows no one any good. It's going to blow back. So no alternative other than make sure you don't block the drainage part, make sure you don't empty your solid waste or whatever waste in them. Because some of our people, besides those building on the canal or whatever, once it rains, they feel it's time for them to empty their waste. And you see them bringing bags and believing that it's washing it down into the water. But it's not true. You discover that this same solid waste or waste of any type will get to a point and there will be bottleneck. It will clog there and it's not going further and it's going to block that place. And upstream, you will start having flooding. So the only alternative, the only way to go is to ensure that we all become police to ensuring that the path, these waters have clear path, unhindered path. Let them just simply, when they precipitate, storm water, let them have that terranean route easily back to where they want to go, which is the larger water body. So that's just it. Looking for other ways is like trying to compound the issues.
Right. All right, Mr. Rotimi Akodu, the Special Advisor to the Executive Governor of Lagos State on Environment. It's been a pleasure having you join us to help us understand the situation, and thank you for giving us some clarity on it as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. You're still watching VSA, and when we come back, we'll look at the issue of mismanagement, alleged mismanagement of funds, and the loan request as well. Just stay with us.